Hey everyone, welcome to Tzfat. My name is Rabbi Amichai Cohen. I'm going to be your tour guide, taking you around the beautiful old city and new city of Tzfat. But first, an introduction to what Tzfat is. So as you see behind me and all around, we're on top of the 𝗧𝘳. It is a beautiful area which gets right to the etymology of what the word itself means. Tzfat means to overlook because of this amazing view. And we are currently standing on the citadel, which is called the 𝗧𝘳, which in Crusader times, this was the tallest Crusader fortress in the Middle East. Because you could well imagine that in order to make sure that the city is defended, you want to have a high altitude, a high vantage point. And so Tzfat comes from the word tzofeh, to overlook because of this amazing view. So behind me you have the view of the Meron Mountains, and further north you have Lebanon, Syria, Golan Heights, and to the south you have the Sea of Galilee, the Kinneret, which you could see on a clear day, and all around there's just a very clear lookout onto the whole panorama, the whole area of the Upper Galilee. And so for that reason, it's always been what is called the capital of the Galilee. Throughout various eras, this has been the place which has always been the seat of the Upper Galilee and thereby the control of the entire north of the land of Israel. We're in the 𝗧𝘳 right now, and the 𝗧𝘳 really encapsulates all the history that Tzfat has gone through. And if we would dig underneath the area over here, we would find so many different relics of the past. So as we mentioned, Joshua was here, and the Jewish people, this was the tribal land of Naphtali. So it's a biblical land, the city of refuge, as we mentioned. But then past that era in Talmudic times, it was actually one of the important landmarks where a fire was lit from mountain to mountain, going all the way to Jerusalem. And these mountains were connected, so they should be seen outside of the land in Babylonia and in other countries where Jews lived. And they should know when the new month happens, called Rosh Chodesh. And so in Talmudic times, this was an important area. Now, we spoke about the Roman era, why this was such an important strategic area on many different levels. And then we get to Byzantine times, and then Crusaders. So now the Crusaders came to Israel to try to take the land back into Christian hands, and to cast away the Muslims that were living over here. So the Muslims and the Jews, the truth is, were living over here pretty much in harmony. And the Crusaders came along and really made a mess, as they did all over the world. One of the places where they made a mess was over here in the north of Israel, where they used this, the 𝗧𝘳, as their center in the north and pretty much in the land of Israel. So they came from Akko and they settled over here. So now the Muslims, of course, came back and they said, well, we can't have that, we can't be embarrassed that way. So they came back and they battled the Crusaders and they got the Crusaders out. They came back again, the Crusaders, for a second time, and they overtook the 𝗧𝘳 once again. So now the Muslims realize that they have to bring in a lot of muscle. And who they hired are mercenaries. And these mercenaries were led by a very courageous individual called Beibar, and they were called the Mamelukes. And they came from Egypt, and they were essentially just hired for money. And they were so powerful and fearsome that they came along and they actually overtook the Crusaders. Various stories of taking the Crusader back, where there's a story that the Crusaders actually went ahead and faked that they had no bad intentions and they just wanted to come in and they wanted to make peace, and then they ended up slaughtering everyone that was here. And of course to that, so battles after battles went on over here for centuries. And so that brings us to the Mameluke era, which was a very important era over here in Israel and in Tzfat as well, where King Beibar built a lot of the structures that we still have in Tzfat, including various mosques, etc. And it was generally a peaceful time for the Jewish people in Tzfat. Now, that kind of goes into Ottoman rule, where the Ottomans came along, and the Ottomans took control of the land of Israel for approximately 500 years. So they had a very, very long rule, and that culminated with the Turkish rule here in Israel prior to the British taking over control of the land. So the Ottoman rule was really the vast majority, we should say, of the time that we know Tzfat as, where the golden age of Tzfat, as we're going to talk about, where the great Kabbalists and Talmudists came to Tzfat during that time of Ottoman rule. And so the Ottomans were generally very fair, and they allowed the Jewish people to live and to study, and they were a lot more benevolent to the Jewish people than the Christians were. And of course, there were ups and downs all the times, and the people of Tzfat, the residents of Tzfat, were always plagued either by physical, natural calamities that went on, such as plagues themselves, earthquakes, as we're going to speak about, and then by the people, by the different tribes that were surrounding the land, the area over here in Tzfat. They came along and they pillaged the community, etc. So generally speaking, it has been a very up and down time for the Jewish people living in Tzfat, never a dull moment. So of course, except for the golden age of Tzfat, which is what Tzfat is known for, that it is the high time of Tzfat, which made Tzfat eternally famous for. Our first stop is here, the 𝗧𝘃 synagogue, which is named for Rabbi Avram Dov of 𝗧𝘃, who was a student of Reb Nachum of Chernobyl, who was a great Hasidic leader, and as well as a student of the Mezritcher Maggid, who was the student of the Baal Shem Tov. So he was essentially a Hasidic Rebbe that came to the land of Israel with a group of Hasidim, group of followers, and they settled over here in Tzfat. By the way, before him, there were the Mughrabis, who are called the Moroccan Jews that came from Morocco and lived over here. And Rabbi Avram Dov of 𝗧𝘃 lived at a very historic time. In approximately 1830 is when he came to the land, and this was his synagogue. This is where he davened every Friday and every single day. And so now I want you to imagine Friday afternoon at most communities, what goes on Friday afternoon. So most people are getting ready for Shabbat, and showering, preparing the table, etc. And so this went on as well over here in Tzfat. Friday night in this very synagogue is when the students of Rabbi Avram Dov of 𝗧𝘃 came together, and all of a sudden, sometime in the middle of the prayer service, Rabbi Avram Dov of 𝗧𝘃 screams out, "Who wants life?" And he says, whoever wants life should grab onto the Ark, to the Aron Kodesh, to the place where the Torah is stored. And everybody just leaped and, of course, just grabbed the Aron Kodesh, the Ark. And moments later, the entire half, the western half of the synagogue caved in. This place over here that I'm standing in right now completely caved in what turned out to be the biggest earthquake that happened over here in Tzfat in recent years. 1837 is the year that is called the Ra'ash HaGadol, the big earthquake, the big thunder. And I always imagine what happened after that prayer service. Who came out, or when they came out, who did they go and visit? Who still remained? Who was there in the homes that they went to? And this earthquake over here was so catastrophic, 2,000 people died on that day. Now, this earthquake was not the first earthquake that we know of in Tzfat. In the mid-1700s and mid-1600s, there have also been reports of a huge earthquake that went on. And so we are on a fault line, which is called the Sino-Africa fault line. And it actually goes straight to Jerusalem. So Tzfat and Jerusalem are on the same fault line. And so the Rabbi 𝗧𝘇𝗳𝘁, said that the spiritual reason for the earthquake was because Jerusalem was jealous. Those were his words. Jerusalem was jealous. Now, what does that mean? Jerusalem is jealous. Jerusalem is a city. It can't be jealous. What does that mean? And so he explained that there was a certain brain drain, and people and the great scholars and the great mystics came to Tzfat and settled over here, and they felt that this is the holy place. This is where they need to kind of focus their energies on. And in truth, although there are 4 holy cities, there's only one holy city. What is the holy city that we have? The holy city is Jerusalem, called Ir HaKodesh, so many times throughout the Bible. And so Jerusalem, the spiritual reason, was the jealousy of Jerusalem. But the rabbi said, Avram Dov of Avrich said that it's never going to happen again. There is not going to be another earthquake again. And we're going to see with the collaboration of others in this small town during that time that worked tirelessly to bring people back to settle here in Tzfat and to make Tzfat again a city where people feel comfortable in on a physical level and then on a spiritual level again. Okay, we are here in the Kikar Abu, in the Abu Square, where there's an area over here to sit, and it's obviously a very special area, kind of different than the rest of the alleyways of the old city. And this is the house of Abu. Now, who's this house of Abu, right? So who is this family? So Rabbi Shmuel Abu came from Algiers to Tzfat in the early 1830s, and he was the Sephardic chief rabbi of Tzfat during the time of the earthquake, that major earthquake that we spoke about earlier. And working in tandem with Rabbi Avram Dov of Avrich, they tried to inspire people to come back and live over here in this holy city of Tzfat. Now, a little bit of history about Rabbi Shmuel Abu. He was a self-made man, in a sense, that he was wealthy. He came along from Algiers, brought his wealth, which is the greatest recipe for a rabbi, that he's not dependent on his constituents to give him a salary. He had his salary. At the same time, he was a very virtuous man. He was a very philanthropic man, that he just gave money away, and he was one of the richest people in this whole area. And in fact, he went ahead and he bought lands all over the area over here in Yesod HaMa'ala and in the whole Jordan Valley. And something else which he did is that he fixed up the tomb of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, which is the reason why this area over here is so different than the rest of the alleyways of Tzfat. And so doing that really distinguished him as being the philanthropic person that dedicated the synagogue of the greatest Kabbalist ever, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and he's the one that went ahead and gave the funds to be able to build that place in Meron, Rabbi Shmuel Abu. That is the reason that every single year on Lag BaOmer, which is the Hilulah, which is the anniversary of the passing of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the great celebration of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai that goes on every single year in Meron, the Sefer Torah, the Torah book of the Torah of Rabbi Shmuel Abu is taken out of this house, and all the dignitaries are here, the chief rabbis, the mayor, the municipality, different important people come for this special event, and that Torah scroll is taken out from the house, and it is actually danced with around the streets of Tzfat in great celebration. And then it is brought to Meron, and it is celebrated with in Meron, obviously for good reason, because it was this person, Rabbi Shmuel Abu, that he went ahead and restored that area of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Just a little bit more about this family. The entire lineage of Rabbi Shmuel Abu did amazing things for not only for Tzfat but for the land of Israel. They in fact went ahead and they gave tons of land to the JNF, to the Keren Kayemet, because of their great love not only for the land of Israel but for the people of Israel, and they wanted people to enjoy the land. And just a little bit of a semi-sad story, I heard this from the great-great-great-grandson of Rabbi Shmuel Abu, I'm kind of friendly with, that told me that his great-grandfather did not have, unfortunately, enough even medicine to go and support his own wife, because they just gave away so much that they were almost bereft of anything on their own. So it's always the balance of life to find out how much to give and how much to keep. And but regardless, Rabbi Shmuel Abu, together with Rabbi Avram Dov of Avrich and with another famous philanthropist called the great Nadiv, 𝗧𝘳𝘁 Montefiore, all three of them got together, and with the funds of 𝗧𝘳𝘁 Montefiore and Rabbi Shmuel Abu, and the promise of Rabbi Avram Dov of Avrich that it's never going to happen again, there isn't going to be another earthquake again, that inspired people to come back here because they were given homes, they were going to be supported through social welfare, and they hope to inspire a resurgence in Tzfat, in the building of Tzfat once again. So a great man, great family, and Rabbi Shmuel Abu over here. Yeah, I wanted to speak about the golden age of Tzfat. The golden age of Tzfat forever is known as the most auspicious time that Tzfat has ever had. And so we know of a lot of golden ages throughout different eras. There was a golden age of Spain, the golden age of the US right now, and whatnot. But the golden age of Tzfat was a time in history that was unique to no others, where we had greats that were ranging from the greatest Talmudic minds of all times to the Kabbalistic mystics that lived all in tandem over here. And out of about 4,000 residents that lived in Tzfat, 2,000 of them were great mystics, Talmudic masters of all types. And just to give you an idea, the first printing press in the entire Middle East came over here to Tzfat. So in this place is where the first printing press was actually used, because there were so many great scholars that disseminated their work throughout the world. So when did this golden age really officially begin? So historians say approximately 1530 up until 1570. So at the year 1570, actually by the death of the Arizal, is when the golden age of Tzfat officially ended. And just to give you an idea of those that lived over here, we had so many opposites that lived over here. Sephardic great Talmudic scholars, Ashkenazi great Talmudic scholars, and they all lived in harmony in this small town. So every golden age has to have, obviously, also a financial golden age. It's not enough to just have a spiritual golden age. What was the financial backing of those great mystics that lived over here, and Talmudists as well, that lived over here in Tzfat? Well, this is riding the Aliyah to Tzfat rides on the heels of the Inquisition. 1492 is when the Jews had to leave Spain, Portugal, etc., and they settled over here. And the Jews of Spain and the Jews in general have always been involved in business. And since they've always had connections with different people all over the world. So many of them settled over here, and they set up textile factories down in a place called Nachal Amud, which is on the bottom of Tzfat. And they set up some intricate weaving factories that they made amazing, beautiful textiles, including silk, that they were selling all over the world for very, very good sums. And people wanted to get their hands on Tzfat textile. So that, of course, inspired and fueled the spiritual golden age, because there was also a financial golden age. There was the help from all of these benefactors and people that lived over here in Tzfat. And many of them actually were both Talmudists, they were Torah scholars, and they were also business people. One such example is Rabbi Avram Galanti and his brother, who were students of the Arizal. They were very, very wealthy businessmen, And they were also great scholars. And that, of course, is a great balance that, that everyone really essentially should yearn for or should want. And it was very much found in the Sephardic community much more than the Ashkenazi communities. So Golden Age of Tzfat, as I mentioned, ended when the Arizal died. There was an epidemic that occurred, and just briefly to talk about that, the Arizal basically said that as we're going to mention, he mentioned that the brotherly love is what it's all about, and loving each other. And a fight broke out between a few of his students, and the Arizal said, "Stop it right now in its tracks," and they didn't for whatever reason, and an epidemic broke out, and that's when the Arizal passed on, and the golden age of Tzfat also passed on. Rabbi Chaim Vital, the chief student of the Arizal, essentially couldn't handle it anymore, and he left Tzfat, and he went to Jerusalem, and then eventually he went to Syria, which is where he was buried, where he died, where he was buried, and he buried the writings of the Arizal, the 𝗧𝘳𝘁, with him. And due to the bravery, we should say spiritual bravery, of Rabbi Avraham Azulai, also happens to be an ancestor of mine, and another student, they made what is called a shelat chalom, a question, an inquiry, a spiritual inquiry, if they're allowed to go into their master's grave, and they got the answer yes. So they went to Syria, dug up the writings of the Arizal, the 𝗧𝘳𝘁, written by Rabbi Chaim Vital, and they're essentially part of the reason why we have the 𝗧𝘳𝘁 in this world. So you may ask, why didn't Rabbi Chaim Vital want the writings of his great master to be revealed? So he felt that we lost that opportunity. That golden opportunity is lost, and we didn't merit. And so the writings of the Arizal should not be publicized. They should not be made public for everyone. They should be stopped. And so that was the thinking of Rabbi Chaim Vital, but the students of Rabbi Chaim Vital recognized that without those writings, without the writings of Kabbalah, without the writings of the mystical aspects of Torah, there's no hope at all. So they went ahead and made that information public. So Golden Age of Tzfat was absolutely amazing. It's when we had all of these great souls, minds living together right here in this small city of Tzfat in harmony. And it was a period of grace which Tzfat is forever known for. So we're here in a place called the Beit HaKahal, the place which was the place of the congregation, essentially the municipality back in the golden age of Tzfat. And in this place, all the great dignitaries basically had their position in. And this very impressive structure shows a time of flourishing on all levels. There was a flourishing on an economic level, which made the Sultan, which made the authorities very happy, because there was taxation that was given over by the people that lived over here. And there were great business people that lived here that came out of Spain and set up their mills down by Nahal Amud, creating beautiful silk and a great industry. So it was a golden age financially, but then there was a golden age, as we know, spiritually. It was a place of just a flourishing on all levels, where all the great people made it over here to Tzfat to have a place in Tzfat. So until the year 2000, this place was just basically a good old mound. You would see a mountain over here. And then the organization, which is called Livnot, started getting their volunteers involved and just doing a little bit of excavation. And what happened was that they started to find structure, and then they found another structure. And then they found this whole entire incredible complex over here, which is an incredible portrayal of what went on over here in the 1500s. So getting to the modern era of Tzfat, in 1948, at the beginning of April, the British commander that was in charge of the north of Israel came to Rabbi Moshe Pedatzur, who was the head of the community and eventually the first mayor of Tzfat, offering them the residents of Tzfat to evacuate immediately. So what was happening is that there were approximately 3,000 Jewish residents of Tzfat and more than 15,000 Arabs that were living over here in Tzfat. And they were getting wind, the British were getting wind that the Arabs were coming along to attack the small Jewish community. Not only the 15,000 residents, but many more were coming from the north, from Lebanon, Syria, etc. And it was going to be a terrible situation, a bloodbath essentially. And so the British forces basically said, get out of here if you want to live. So the Jewish community replied, we're not leaving Tzfat, we're staying over here. We're not going on any of those buses. So the British thought that they were crazy and they left town and to see what would happen. This is 1948, remember. Things were going on for the British in many different areas. They were about to leave the land itself. They were ready to just take off. And so there were battles that were ensuing between the Jewish forces pre-IDF, which were called the Haganah forces, and the Arab marauding forces that were coming along to attack. And so in what is called Operation Yiftach, the small Jewish community went out to defend. And in this area called Kikar Meginim, the area of defenders, they actually went along and fought a very, very brave battle. Part of the battle was going up on that Metsuda front, and 42 brave soldiers fell, died, and they were coming against live fire, live ammunition, which was coming from above. So you could imagine going against all odds to try to really defend the small city of Tzfat. And then out of nowhere, the small Arab community kind of just took off, just left. And around 15,000 residents just ran for the hills. And nobody knew what happened over here for quite a while, until the following story, which was an amazing story, came out to light. And the story is that huge staircase was a staircase that was a divider between the Jewish community and the Arab community. And pre-1930, there was peace between the communities, and there were many friends that were made, and they did business together, etc. There were no problems. But what happened was that the British had the Jews and the Arabs build that huge staircase to divide the Jewish community and the Arab community. So what came out is the following. There was a Jewish grandmother that sat on one side, on the Jewish side of the staircase, and an Arab grandmother that sat on the Arab side of the staircase. And they used to speak. So the Jewish grandmother said, you know what, I have a secret. I don't want you to tell anyone the secret. And whenever you say that to someone, when I have a secret, don't tell the secret to someone, they say it much more. And what was the secret? The secret was that we, the Israelis, the Jewish people, have the atom bomb. So that's the story. And so 1948, when the fights occurred, the two forces clashed with each other. This was in the end of April. And usually in the end of April, there's no rain. It's basically spring. And out of nowhere, it started to rain thunder, lightning, and then the only major, we could say minor artillery that they had, that the Jewish forces had, were the Davidkas. And so the Davidka, they had 4 of them, blasted forth. And so the Arabs did not know what was going on. What were these blasts? So when there was lightning and thunder, they thought that it was the atom bomb. It was an atom explosion. And so they heard about the Manhattan Project. They heard about all these things, and they basically ran for the hills. They basically took off. And they realized that they were attacked by the atom bomb. And so that's an amazing story, how Tzfat actually gained its independence before the rest of Israel. And the northern front was the northern front that kind of like helped spiral the rest of the independence of Israel. And so in what we call Iyar, the 4th of Iyar, we have the independence of the rest of Israel. On the 1st of Iyar, we have the independence of Tzfat. So we're right outside of the Abu Hav synagogue, which in my opinion is the most beautiful synagogue here in Tzfat and possibly in the world. It is exquisitely in the Spanish architectural style that Rabbi Yitzchak Abu Hav actually commissioned to have built over here in Tzfat. So the myth of it is that Rabbi Yitzchak Abu Hav, who was a great mystic and a great Talmudist, in fact, Rabbi Joseph Caro says about him that he's an immense scholar. And so so Rabbi Yitzchak Abu Hav sent along with his students something very special. He said, once you come to the land of Israel, although I'm too old, you're going to find there's something special. And the myth of it is that this synagogue flew from Spain and arrived over here in Tzfat. The practical answer is that it was built in the same style of his synagogue in Tzfat. Well, something for sure that we know came over here with the students of Rabbi Yitzchak Abu Hav is his Torah scroll, which was written by him. And it's the oldest kosher Torah scroll which is in use nowadays. So from the 1500s up until nowadays, this Torah scroll is taken out 3 times a year, and the acronym for that is kasher. Kasher is kaf, which is Yom Kippur, shin is Shavuot, and reish is Rosh Hashanah. So 3 times a year is when they take it out, and according to legend, Rabbi Yitzchak Abu Hav made sure that his students would never take out the Torah scroll out of this synagogue. So what happened in the 2 earthquakes that ensued this far? And so the first earthquake, they say that the gabbai, that the warden over here in the synagogue took out the Torah scroll, and what happened was, and he did not survive the year because the rabbi essentially said that one should not do so. Kind of modern story happened in the 1970s. People, that were not thinking straight decided to come into the synagogue and actually break through the ark over there that we just saw, and open it up, and they stole the Torah scroll of Rabbi Yitzchak Abu Hav. So as they're driving down the winding streets out of Tzfat, their motorcycle turns over and they instantly die. The police comes to the scene and sees what happened, and of course this was written up in all the newspapers, and since then nobody has tried to do that. But the security on that Aron Kodesh, on that ark, is not really too heavy, right? As you would expect such an old Torah scroll to have. Now there's 3 arks over there. Why is that? So practical reason is because there's a lot of Torah scrolls that were donated over here by various families. And another reason is that the number 3, we've got in the temple, we've got the Yachin Boaz, we have the right pillar, the left pillar, and then we've got the entrance. And so the right, the left, and so the rabbi's Torah scroll is on the right side, and that represents the side of chesed, the side of giving, of benevolence. And that of course is why God created the world. Olam chesed ibane. So it's all the way on the right side of the arcs over there. And another point is that this synagogue is built perfectly in accordance with halakha, with Jewish law, and with Kabbalah. And it's got the certain steps, those steps that are going up to what is called the bima. And that's where the Torah scroll is read. And that's where the Chazan prays certain parts of the prayers up there, as well as having those 12 windows. And the 12 windows represent the 12 tribes, that each tribe has an entranceway, gateway, a connection, a spiritual connection to the divine, which according to Jewish law, each synagogue should have, preferably. If they don't, it's still okay. So this synagogue is really built in a perfect way. And of course, we've got the blue on top, which we are going to discuss in greater detail. Something unmistakable for anyone that comes to Tzfat is the color of the city, favorite color of the city. What is the color of the city? It's blue, light blue. And there's a famous city in Morocco which is called the Blue City, 𝗧𝘃. And there's a tradition that many Jews that used to live in Tzfat moved there, and they painted their houses in blue in the tradition of where they came from, and it attracts millions of tourists. So the city of Tzfat is the origin of that blue. And so there's a bunch of reasons for that. First reason is because Tzfat is the tallest city in Israel, and tall in many ways. Tall physically, but then tall spiritually. And so they say that the angels feel very comfortable being in this very high altitude, and it reminds them of the sky. So we want them to feel at home, so we paint everything in blue. So that's the nice, what we call the mom and pop, what they gave over to their kids and to whoever else. But the deeper reason is, so in the book of Rabbi Avram Azulai, who lived over here in Tzfat for a little while, a student of Rabbi Chaim Vital, he writes there that Tzfat is actually right opposite or right under the throne of glory, the 𝗧𝘳 𝘳𝘁. And it says that the throne of glory is blue. So the Talmud tells us that that's actually the reason why the tzitzit has a strand of blue on it, because the blue is supposed to remind us of the ocean, and the ocean is supposed to remind us of the sky, and the sky is supposed to remind us of the 𝗧𝘳 𝘳𝘁, the throne of glory, of God's throne that is spoken about in Ezekiel and in Isaiah. And so because of that reason, we're literally under the throne of glory. The city is painted in blue to remind us of the holiness of this city. He also writes that anyone that lives in Tzfat has the 13 attributes of mercy, which is upon them. So there's a special protection and a special blessing because to all residents and people that just actually even walk through the city, or people that are even watching, I guess, on some level. But the blue of the sky also reminds us of the idea of malchut, of kingship, and to ward away negativity. So we think that warding away negativity is the red, and there's the red string, etc. The truth is blue. It says that the ark was covered with a blue. Why? The word techelet in Hebrew means lechalot, means to obliterate, to ward away. And so that's why when the ark traveled through, there was this blue tarp that kind of like warded away all negativity. So we want to ward away all negativity, and the color for that is blue, the light blue, techelet. The light blue is also the color of malchut. Mystically, Kabbalistically, each sphera has its particular color. And the color of malchut, of kingship, is light blue. So we could say that the kingship of God, and as we spoke about in our previous spots that we were in, no doubt made its way over here to Tzfat and decided to make it a permanent residence with the angelic beings that are here, the throne of glory that is here, and all of us and that are here, that are bringing about positive light to the world from the city of Tzfat. We're going to proceed to go up to the me'ara, to the cave of Rabbi Yosef Karo, where he had a special connection with the angel. The cave of the Maggid is the place where Rabbi Joseph Karo, who is the greatest Talmudist in the last 1,000 years, actually studied, and it's the place where his courthouse was. So in this place is where Rabbi Joseph Karo actually took in different court cases to be decided upon. And so who was Rabbi Joseph Karo? Rabbi Joseph Karo was a child of the Inquisition, survivors of the Inquisition. He was born in Spain, and he immigrated to Israel when he was very young, when he was 6 years old. And he settled over here in Tzfat, where he wrote what is known as the greatest halachic treatise in the world, the Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law. And in this book, Shulchan Aruch, he actually decides upon all of the major Talmudic questions. And all of them are actually concurred upon based on the way that Rabbi Joseph Karo decided to bring about the halakha, which he actually said that there are three major, what we call rishonim, major medieval greats, the Maimonides, the Rosh, Rabbi Asher, and the Rif, the Alfasi, and the two of them that concur on one level is the opinion that he went along with. So the Shulchan Aruch is known by everyone, by most people, that was the work of Rabbi Joseph Caro. But then he had also 4 other books. So he had a book on the Maimonides called the Kesef Mishneh. He had a book on the Torah, which is called the Beit Yosef. And he's got a Talmudic treatise, which is called Afkat Rochel. And then there's a book which a lot of people don't know about. It's called the Magid Mesharim. The Magid, which is literally a teller or a speaker, Magid, is a speaker which is a celestial, an angelic being that came to Rabbi Joseph Caro, actually in this place inside of a cave over there, would appear to him and reveal all types of deep secrets, mysteries. And he recorded it in this book called the Magid Mesharim. So how did this happen? First time that it happened, he actually was wondering what's going on. I all of a sudden have this revelation of an angel. What are you doing over here? And so the angel said, Ani ha-Mishnah ha-medaberet mitoch picha. I am the Mishnah that was speaking from your mouth. And what Rabbi Joseph Caro used to do every single day, even when he was on his off time, in other words, he was learning the whole time, or was involved in all types of discussions. When he was not doing those things, he was just saying the Mishnah. And he was saying the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi's Mishnah, 18 chapters every single day by heart. So in approximately 30 days, he completed the whole Mishnah. 6 sdarim, 6 portions of the Mishnah. He would complete them every single month. So imagine that mouth which is constantly speaking Torah. That was the great Rabbi Yosef Caro. So the Maggid said to him, I am the Mishnah that is appearing from within your mouth. And that's the result of the mitzvah that you have done. And so we all know that when one does a mitzvah, they create an angel. And so words of Torah create angels up above. So imagine the amount of angels which Rabbi Joseph Caro created by virtue of his Mishnah, and eventually that they came together in a form to actually reveal these secrets to him. So Rabbi Joseph Caro, just a little bit more about the Shulchan Aruch. He actually completed the Shulchan Aruch in Beria, which is a little bit outside of Tzfat, and he was ready to publish it. And just as he was about to publish it, Rabbi Moshe Isserlis, who lived in Krakow, Poland, actually did something very similar. Put together the whole, halacha, the whole Talmudic end conclusions of everything according to Ashkenazic Jewry. But instead of actually publishing it on his own, he said, you know what? Let's get together and make one book, one unified book called the Shulchan Aruch, which literally means the set table. So just something that I want you to think about, to consider. This small town of Tzfat is not just a Kabbalistic town, it's not just a halachic town, a town of Shulchan Aruch. It's a town that actually combines the two. And it's the meshing of two, it's the balance of both what we call the nigle, the revealed aspect of the Torah, and pnimiyut Torah, and the secrets of the Torah, is really what the Torah is all about. It's the soul, as the Zohar says, nishmata deraita, and gufei halacha, and gufei, in the body of the Torah. Both of them come together to really merge as one, because the balance is all in the soul and it's in the body. And so that's something which everyone really is looking for. Everybody really wants that connection between the body and the soul, that mixture of the spiritual and the very practical. And so people come to Tzfat and they're really just, they don't even know what's so special about this little town. But really, just walking through this town, it's just feeling the vibe of both the spiritual and the very concrete. The nigle de Torah and also pnimiyut Torah, both of them coming together. And so whether people know it or not, that is something which is over here. It's palpable in this small city of Tzfat. We are in the holy Ari Shul. For many, many years, this shul was actually shut because of the holiness of the shul. Personally, I didn't feel comfortable even walking into this shul because of its intense holiness. In this shul, the Arizal himself prayed, And in this shul, he had a meeting, daily meetings with Elijah the prophet, where he received insights into the mystical dimensions of the Torah. And in this shul is where he called up to the Torah the 7 shepherds, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Moshe, Aaron, Joseph, and King David were all summoned here in this shul to the Torah. So for this reason, the Ari Shul is known as the holiest of the shuls over here in Tzfat. And it is also the oldest. It's also called the Mughrabi Shul, what is called the Moroccan Shul, because the original inhabitants that came from Morocco came here early on in the 1500s. And so the Ari preferred to pray in what is called the Nusach HaAri, the Nusach of Sephardi. Now, before there was a Nusach Ari, there was the Sephardic and Ashkenazic way of praying. And the Ari felt that according to Kabbalah, the more correct of the 2 versions is the Sephardic version. And he actually, with his meditations on the Siddur, reached great, what is called unifications. And many of them were practiced, they were done here in this shul. So let's take a look over here. We're going to go to the Me'ara, it's called, to the cave of where the Ari had those meetings with Elijah the prophet. Okay, we're in the cave of the Ari and where Elijah met. And this is a very holy place. You feel it. The energy over here is just so powerful. So I know you probably can't feel it there, but you could experience it from where I'm at. And I just want to say, I want to stop over here for this moment and to shed blessings upon all of us. And Tzfat is a holy place, and people bask and take from that energy, that spiritual, positive, holy energy which is here, and this is certainly one of those places. So let's just stop over here for a moment and send a prayer up to the big boss in heaven, and may all of our prayers be answered for what we need. Okay, we are here in the holy cemetery of Tzfat, and in this cemetery is where some of the greatest individuals, the most powerful spiritual giants are buried. We've got the Arizal, we've got the Ramak, the Alshech, the Meshech Chochma, and we've got Chana and her 7 sons, and we've got prophets that are buried over here, and the list goes on and on. In fact, in the Sefarim, in the books, in the holy books, it's brought down that this cemetery has kiflaim 𝗧𝘳𝘳, double the amount of those that went out of Egypt. That means that there are approximately 1 million holy individuals that are buried over here. Now, that expression of kiflaim 𝗧𝘳𝘳, double the amount that went out of Egypt, is usually what is called lashon guzma. It's an exaggerated term, but the exaggeration over here is because there are so many holy individuals that are buried over here. And this cemetery, known as the Beit HaChaim, the house of the living, is visited by hundreds of thousands of individuals every single year because of its holiness. And it's known as the 2nd holiest cemetery in Judaism after the Har HaZeitim, the Mount of Olives, which is of course across from Mount Moriah. And so very holy place to go down and to visit, and those that are able to pray over there by the resting place of those holy individuals, which is a whole discussion in and of itself of what is the significance of connecting to the holy individuals. But I will say very briefly that we know that there are 5 levels of soul, and the lowest level of soul is called nefesh, and the highest level of soul is called yechidah. And the soul goes back to its root, King David says, right? It goes back to its original source, but nevertheless it's connected down in this world on the level of nefesh in the burial spot of the individual, any individual. So how much more so when there's a connection which is forged with the holy individual. When we're connected down below, we're connected all the way up on top to those holy supernal levels that the tzaddik, that the holy individual is connected to at this very time. So worth a visit, to come here in person, to send your prayers, And definitely, it's a holy place that prayers ascend up to the heavens. So one of the main tenets of the Arizal's teaching is V'ahavta l'recha kamocha. Rabbi Akiva says, the V'ahavta l'recha kamocha ze kol haTorah. That's the entire Torah. Loving your friend or loving the other as you love yourself. And the students of the Arizal, called the cubs of the Arizal, were all connected to each other via love. And we find this by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, that his students are called Chavraya Kadisha, that they're called the Holy Friendship. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says that Anan b'chavivuta talya milsa, that I am connected to love. And so love is the entrance point to the ability to become more of a sensitively spiritual, divine individual, the ability to overcome our base need for ego recognition and materialism, etc. That metamorphosis is essentially the main tenets that we could say that Kabbalah really teaches. Again, this is the whole Torah. So the ability for the individual to really surpass their ego and themselves and to be able to receive from the infinite bliss and goodness of the Creator is essentially one of the main tenets of all Kabbalistic thought. And just as a side note, a little bit sad when it gets us into the passing of the Arizal and really the end of the golden age of Tzfat is unfortunately when there was an argument that broke out between different of the friends of the Arizal. And as a result of that, the Arizal said, please stop fighting. And this argument persisted. And the Arizal said, you don't know what you're going to be losing out. And very shortly after, an epidemic broke through over here in Tzfat, and the Arizal and many others passed on at that time. And so the end of that golden age of Tzfat was culminated, unfortunately, in a very sudden, abrupt way, and it gives us the importance, the feeling of importance of how much we need to respect each other, how much we need to work on this virtue of loving the other and considering the other and being compassionate to the other. In fact, the Arizal, in his introduction to the entire Siddur, writes that as a prerequisite for entranceway into the communion that one has with the divine. The entranceway is this exact verse. So let's all get on that and be powerfully inspired to work on that. V'ahavta l'recha kamocha. We are outside the Ari Ashkenazi synagogue, and this area over here is called the Chakal Tapuchin Kadishin. Literally, it means the holy orchard field. And this place was an orchard field. And what happened was that every Friday afternoon before the Sabbath, the Ari and his students would come up from the lower part of Tzfat to this very orchard to greet the Sabbath. And they would face the resting place of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, where mystically, that is where the Sabbath emanates from. And they would be facing essentially the west, but thinking about the south, thinking about Jerusalem. And here we get into the whole aspect, we could say, of why the great Kabbalists chose to live up here in the north of Israel, and why specifically Tzfat. As we've learned, Tzfat was a very, very difficult place to live in, from earthquake to epidemic to difficulties that we had over the years. At the end of the day, the great Kabbalists chose to come over here to the Tzafon, to the north, because they wanted that from the most further place, the place which is so far away, it should join up with Jerusalem, with something which is rebuilt, and to dream about the rebuilding of the temple, about the world which is a better world to live in, and essentially to yearn for Shabbat. Shabbat is the culmination of the 6 days. It's the time that the world has an elevation, and the whole purpose of life and creation manifests. And so the Ari and his students really came up here, and it wasn't just that they were taking in the Sabbath and they were singing like nice little songs and they were going home to eat their meal. That's also great. But it was much more than that. They were anticipating, yearning, and And it takes us back to what we were saying. The word tzfat is anticipation, tzipiyah, to anticipate this great world and to anticipate Jerusalem and to want that rebuilding of Jerusalem once more. And so from the north, that the north should connect to Jerusalem. So there's a famous teaching that is circulated around Tzfat, and that is Ki bachar Hashem b'Tzion, that God has chosen Zion, and that's Jerusalem. Iva lemoshav lo, He desired to dwell in Zion, in Jerusalem. So the mystics used to say Ki bachar is the letters charav, that when Jerusalem is destroyed, when we don't have the temple, so then Iva lemoshav lo, He chose to dwell there. And what's Iva? Iva in a certain numerology, which is called atbash, where we take the first letter and we give it the last letter as meaning, and the second letter is second to last letter. So the letters for Iva is Tzfat. So when at the time of the exile, when the temple is destroyed, so then God then chose to imbue Himself, and the Shekhinah, the divine presence, found itself here in the holy city of Tzfat. And so on a microcosmic level, really in Tzfat is where we have the seeds for the rebuilding of the third temple, for the seeds for redemption, and the seeds for a world, a greater world that all of us really want to live in. And it's the rebuilding of our own brokenness. And therefore we go back to Tzfat and we look at the imperfections. We look at things that are nice, but then we look that there's something a little bit not perfect there. But then we see the view, and it all comes together because the imperfection and all these roads and everything that we go through, the labyrinth of roads that is here in Tzfat, the alleyways really take us where? Take us back to our own inner alleyways and our own rebuilding of our own inner Jerusalem. So I want you to imagine the Ari standing over here with his students, and just imagine what he was aspiring for, where he was going. And so the truth is, this is my favorite spot in the Old City and in Tzfat. And I imagine standing over here with the Ari, holding onto his white coattails, and imagining what he was yearning for, what he was aspiring for. And so if we would just close our eyes and take in the energy and take in the amount of yearning that was done over here. It says that holiness never leaves its place. And this place is forever known as a special place. And in fact, the Ari Ashkenazi synagogue was built afterwards because of this field that we are currently in. And may we all hold on to that coattails of the Ari, and may the Ari's great merit help us jump over all obstacles that we may have in our place. Many blessings.